Okay, welcome back, everybody, to the Industrial Insights podcast. I have Tanjuan of Scannell Properties and Sean Ward of CBRE with me today. And this is one of those episodes where we get all of our colleagues and people who grew up in the business together to talk about what's happening in Orange County. So I reflected on the time we've had. If you think of 20 years in the business and what has happened over those 20 years, we've seen a lot in the cycle and a lot just like in our own growth and development. So I'm excited to spend time with you guys and kind of open up part of what's happening out there today and how we all got to today. So for those who don't know, Jay and Sean may live under a rock, but if you wouldn't mind just to give people who are listening who might be new a little background, that'd be super helpful.
Yeah, no, thanks, Justin. Thanks for having us on. Been on your podcast before, so it's great to come back and join you again. So yes, my name is Jay Tanjuan. Head up the Southwest region for Scannell Properties, and actually opened the first SoCal office for Scannell back in January of 22. So remember that time was probably great time in the market. Probably had the most fun I had in the business from January to about June of 22. And then it's been just an absolute rock fight since then. So that's been my experience thus far in 4 years or so that at Scannell. But otherwise it's been great.
Love it.
I'm still shocked that from you saying 20 years in the business. I mean, are we that old, guys? Like, has this happened? I mean, I'm 23 years at CB, which is just mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm Sean Ward. I've been with CBRE 23 years, based here in Orange County. I've done industrial that whole time. Didn't start at CB. I was at a different shop for a few months before. But essentially my entire career after college has been in industrial real estate, and most of it here at CBRE.
Love it. Yeah, I noticed I almost have some old man stories. That's when you know. Well, that's how it was when I started. I remember this one, and then you have to pause and be like, "Oh no, I just did it."
Yeah,
I crossed over.
Yeah. Well, I pride myself in the dad jokes with the kids. Like, I love to embarrass my kids. So
yeah.
you know you're of a certain age when like your favorite thing in life is to embarrass your teenage kids. So yeah.
It's nothing better.
My kids are still at the age where, just at the cusp of we're our parents, or my wife and I, we're still like, they still want to hang out with us, And
Yeah.
so, but I
nice.
already feel
That's
the oldest one, she's going to be 12, she's already like trying to create a little bit of space, more, which is, kind of tough, but it is kind of how it goes.
That is the process.
Yeah.
You don't know anything, Dad, but can you make me a bowl of cereal and
Right.
maybe help me put away my laundry and help make my lunch for me too, and then take me over to soccer practice?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Sounds right. Nothing better.
Well, I have to imagine dealing with teenagers is a little bit like doing deals these days in the true weatherman transition. So, what's it like doing deals these days, and how's it different than last year? I figure we don't have to go all the way back to COVID yet, but if you just think of like this last year is probably a great way to put things in perspective and give people something to noodle on of what's happening right here, right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think this year has been a lot more positive than last year. Last year at the start, that first quarter was, really active. And then Liberation Day, April 2025 hit, and then everything slowed down. So I think a lot of the activity that we're seeing right now, because I think this first quarter for 2026 has been really strong. We have a project in Garden Grove that, we're talking to a few groups. So that's been encouraging, and, wrapping up construction there. So, but I think this first quarter, is really, maybe some pent up just demand and activity just from, the inactivity from, third, fourth quarter of 2025. So I think it's really going to be telling what happens now, April, May, June, heading into the summer, what that activity looks like, and if we're able to sustain the momentum that we're kind of building in this first quarter right now. Because obviously, and then, not to mention, there's so many kind of things outside of our control. The war in Iran. What's happening with the Straits of Hormuz? Are we going to have inflation again? All these things like that are hanging out there that could affect which direction this thing goes. So, but I will say I'm encouraged, and I think it's been positive so far. And so, I believe 2026 will be better than 2025.
How about from an underwriting perspective? Would you say more deals to underwrite, less deals, and the way that you underwrite them has changed?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think that's been a big difference as well. We've seen a flurry of actual development deals to actually pursue. And most of it is kind of from other developers that have, for whatever reason, need to move on from the project, and go in another direction. So I think that's been encouraging. I was just telling someone it's probably see like a new deal come through at least every week that's openly marketed. And so that's in addition to kind of all the off market stuff that we're chasing behind the scenes. But there's been a lot of uh, land development sites come to the market in Orange County and LA areas. Not seeing it really in the IE as much as active. But I think the big reason LA and Orange County are getting a lot of activity is really advanced manufacturing and, some of these groups that, are paying the highest rents. And if you're in the right pocket in LA and Orange County, you can really push rents, and you're seeing buyers lean into that theory, and it's getting quite competitive. If you can't just underwrite super conservatively and hope that you could win it, because you're not going to be anywhere near the top. So buyers are leaning in. So I think now's the time to take action, because it's not going to get any easier. We have such a difficult time developing in California for a variety of reasons, namely, the legislation that's in place that is generally kind of anti-warehouse, and a lot of other uh, factors that are affecting doing business in California that make it just much more difficult. So if you can get something now, I think now's the time to strike.
Yeah. What's your experience been, Sean?
Well, I agree with Jay. I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt that land values have come down 60%, 70%. It's just interesting when you look at that math, right? Like we just sold a piece of land for to a developer, um, and that value was 2/3 cheaper than what we were selling that piece of land for in 2022. I mean, it's just wild. I mean, you think, and the underwriting, the base underwriting to justify the land value. I mean, those rents are even higher today, than they were back then, or pretty close to the same rate. It just shows you, cost of capital, construction costs, like those two things swing the pro forma so wildly. But yeah, overall the market, like I would say, let's just say I've never used the term advanced manufacturing so much in my entire life. Never thought of
Yeah.
that term so much. That is the main story. I think if you had to sum up infill SoCal industrial, it's advanced manufacturing.
Right.
Bottom line, the deals that are happening now, primarily in South Bay, and they're happening in Orange County, but really just with Anduril, if we're being honest, or companies that supply to Anduril and need to be very closely located to them.
Yeah.
But the groups, the deals that are happening to South Bay right now are just, they're wild. And the rents are high. To me, it's like you have to be in a location And so the question is, everybody's trying to figure out, okay, what makes an advanced manufacturing building, right? Is my
Yep.
warehouse an advanced manufacturing building? Like
Yeah.
every owner, our
Please.
team, right? Yeah. Part of that is you get to paint with a wide brush there of like, yeah, sure, it's an advanced manufacturing building. Some of it I will think is marketing, certainly in the groups that are trying to pitch their buildings as advanced manufacturing. But the bottom line is when you look at how the operators, the occupiers are looking at buildings, like what is their calculus? First and foremost, it's proximity to labor, right? Anduril will lease buildings at pretty strong rates. If they're close to their headquarters and close to their labor base, they're not going to pay. To date, they have not reached outside. They haven't come up to North Orange County to lease a building. They're not going to pay $225 a foot triple net for a North Orange County building. Not right now. South Bay, I mean, I don't know if you guys, a deal just happened on Morgan Stanley's 500 with Velar Atomics, a group that makes like small modular nuclear reactor power generators. I mean, it's a company of less than 50 employees, leasing 500,000 square feet, and one of the biggest deals that'll happen in Southern California this year. Any company that is in AI, energy, robotics, rockets, space. I mean, it is wild, the groups that are coming out. And it seems like they're moving from 5,000 square feet straight into 500,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And it's so like, you can't really see them coming. Like they're just coming out of nowhere. They weren't on anybody's radar. And then it's like, whoa, my God, what happened there? So that to me, that's the main storyline of the market right now. It's not indicative of the overall market, but it's becoming a more significant theme. The data, it's starting to move move the needle.
Those flex properties used to be ones you'd get stuck with on a listing for a really long time that are now perhaps a version of what is more desirable.
It's proximity to labor, power, and parking. Those are the top three, the 3 Ps we call them.
Yeah.
And if you have that lineup of those three attributes with a couple other things, they seem to want 36-foot clear, 32, 36-foot clear buildings. They seem to want things like, flat floors, but primarily they want as much power as possible, as much parking as possible, and it's got to be in the right location.
Yeah, and I thought it's been interesting. Sorry, Justin. Just to add to that, I mean, one of the biggest things, like historically for SoCal, that has been the main driver for industrial has always been, hey, we're the closest to the ports of LA, Long Beach, and so we're actively tracking port activity to translate to warehouse occupancy, and so what's been interesting, I think, was last year we actually broke records. I think all-time records for the ports of LA and Long Beach. Over 20 million TEUs were coming through, but then our vacancy was still, higher than it's been in recent years, and so that's, I think, been an interesting development. Whereas maybe we're evolving a little bit to to not be as port centric. I mean, we're always going to be it's always going to be a thing, right? Because we are so close. But maybe this advanced manufacturing story is going to be more of the dominant kind of narrative, I think, moving forward.
So with that disconnect, right? Record high imports, no real significant movement in the industrial market. Where's that disconnect? Do we have theories on that?
Well, I think it's just going on rail. I mean, in 2020 during the supply chain crisis, we saw all these ships, container ships lined up off the coast of LA and Long Beach trying to get in. And then, I think they've learned from that process, to be more efficient. They've incorporated, I think, more automation also at the ports. And so they're able to get that stuff through, and they put it on rail, and then it goes to the rest of the country. Because I think coming in through the ports of LA and Long Beach, are I think is not always, but oftentimes the better alternative than trying to go through the Panama Canal, and you have all those issues that could pop up there, and then trying to, you know, go to the East Coast or Gulf Coast ports there. So I think coming in through it from Asia, coming in through the ports of LA and Long Beach, and then distributing, from that point. So,
Yeah,
and it doesn't really stay local as much.
right. I think too, another theory I've heard is that it's hard for folks like us to track the space utilization that these 3PLs have. Like how full are their buildings?
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
my guess is that, the imports have been coming in and taking up a lot of empty space sitting in 3PLs warehouses. But I don't know. We have a supply chain expert on here with us, so we should ask him what the reason is.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking with that Carl that runs Flex, that has a spot market for like capacity for 3PLs. And so his whole business model is to make a market of excess capacity from 3PLs so that people can store goods for like a 9 months at a time, 6 months, 12 months, something like that. So it's interesting to see there's clearly enough capacity for someone to have a whole business model predicated on being a middleman, like schlepping excess capacity that comes with services and comes with material handling. So it's not just like the empty box without any infrastructure in it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Very
yeah, I just
interesting.
think of it like the spigot kind of turned off with a lot of the goods, or perhaps dialed down a notch. And then it's interesting to see, yeah, with the advanced manufacturing, we still have a high cost of market, like high cost of doing business. You still get all the people that talk about California being difficult. But then these are like maybe the highest of the technical skill or the highest of like the engineering type of talent that needs good universities. So I would imagine that's a lot that goes with it. That is a good thing we have to like buoy our market a little bit and grow with the segments that are growing.
Yeah, and we built a lot of industrial space, from 2020 to 2022, and even before that,
Yeah.
we were in the Inland Empire is going at 40 million square feet under construction a year routinely, and all of it was getting absorbed. We couldn't build it fast enough. And then, all that stuff with, e-commerce and the whole, the pandemic and, that just, put, jet fuel in the whole thing to really send it into another, you know, stratosphere. So, we just built
Mm-hmm.
so much, and then now we're kind of having to deal with it, and it's taking a while to kind of right size, I think, and figure out what's the optimal space needs, I think, for groups. So, but we're starting to
Yeah.
see some of these now. These companies, they're it's been 5 years now, so they're up for renewal, and so what's that going to look like? How much are they going to grow? Are they going to contract or stay the same? So we're going to really see how that plays out now in real time.
I mean, IE is a completely different animal. That market relies heavily on the 3PL
Yeah.
activity. But infill, I mean, in Orange County, there's like less than 1 million square feet under construction right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that pipeline of new development is seriously drying up. And this was our thesis for the last 2 years. One of our talking points is when we get into 26, 27, 28, there's going to be very little inventory, quality inventory. And you look at LA and Orange County, infill markets here in SoCal, look at the last 10 deals, the largest 10 deals to happen. I mean, they're big buildings and they're, class A all the way buildings. And they've been leased by, there's a mix of like these advanced manufacturing users with a ton of investment capital behind them. And then there's like the brand name blue chip, I can't even say their names. I don't think I'm allowed to say them, but we all know them.
Yeah.
They've been leasing space like crazy too. And so then the question becomes like, okay, well, where does the next 500,000 square foot building going to go? Like, it's not under construction now.
Mm-hmm.
Where does it go? It's getting harder and harder to build. It's harder and harder to find uh, parcels of that size. You've got owners sitting on land that still think their land is worth $180 per land square foot and don't want to hear that it's only worth, maybe $80 on a good day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's this, buyer seller disconnect, a price disconnect. It just becomes real interesting. I don't know. I just had CB Research pull a stat in Orange County that only 2.7% of our base is 36 clear or better.
Wow. Yeah.
It's like nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing. I'm running with a requirement right now. They need, 400,000 or 500,000 square feet, and explicitly was told, please don't show us anything under 36 foot clear. This is a storage distribution type of use. And,
it's a small list.
That list, based on the leasing that has happened over the last 6 months, we had maybe 6 options, and I don't even know if we have 1 right now.
Wow.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the thing. It turns pretty quickly once once things get going, and then before you know it, you're like, oh wait, well, now we have a problem. So
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys can appreciate when you share that with clients, and then they say, "But look at what's happening today." Right. And then trying to help them understand that, and then marry up their timing expectations. That certainly is a eternally challenging conversation of yeah.
Our market in SoCal runs very strongly on landlord sentiment. And when you look at 2020, 21, and 22, rents were going up 5% a month, and our vacancy rates were sub 1%. I don't exactly recall, but I think OC was like 0.7 and Mid-County was like 0.4. At that time, think of that, the COVID run up, we probably had, I don't know, I put a spotlight on Southern California industrial. We probably had twice as many operators come into the market saying, hey, we need SoCal industrial in our portfolio. We probably had 2, 3, or 4 times the amount of capital that was bouncing around the market looking for deals come into the market, and drove prices up. And they were rewarded in their thesis of like SoCal industrial is a good market to invest in, as they saw rents going up 5% a month. I mean, we had clients building new buildings that were near completion that refused to put them on the market because it just made more sense to wait.
Yeah.
Right. But now, as 6 months after Jay opened his shop here and June of 2022 hit and interest rates started going up, and then we were dealing with interest rates, inflation, then it was tariffs. Everybody's been kicking the can and waiting, but we're about to hit the 4-year anniversary of tenants pulling back in the market. It's wild.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a long time. So I rightfully so, I think tenants are like, I don't know. There's no deals happening in the market. Our business is still a lot of uncertainty. But I think we all know, based on the people in the market and the capital here, if we get some momentum, landlords will tighten up very quick. And to your point, Justin, it's hard to preach that message to tenants right now, because if they don't have that historical context, it's hard to see that on the street and in the data.
COVID gave landlords a PhD in raising rent of when to do it, how to do it. I feel like that period of time was so pronounced that perhaps we just didn't have that shock before to have that kind of behavior if you go back in your 20 years. But I got to imagine that means faster adjustments, faster pricing increases as soon as you got a couple proposals going. It doesn't take too long to start turning the dials.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, there was a time in COVID, I think it was the first 4 months, where we were working out rent relief packages for tenants, and then that stopped pretty quickly, and it was game on. The Fed dumped a ton of money in the market, businesses were going crazy, the whole port thing. It was a wild time. We should all go to bed at night praying for one more cycle like that.
Just one more in our career. Yeah.
All right, please God.
Well, I think that was just that was just we'll be super lucky we get one more. I mean, it was just such a perfect storm of all these things coming together, as Sean mentioned. So, but but that's what I guess makes it fun is just, trying to figure out what's going to be the next thing. And maybe it's this advanced manufacturing story. How deep is this market? Um, you know, Other than Anduril, there's some others, but where are those groups going to come from? And but you can see it. I mean, you can feel it happening. I mean, with AI and just the the potential there, and all the industries that support AI and data centers, there's going to be some need here, and people want to live here. That's why a lot of talent is here. Despite all the difficulty with kind of just labor laws and and all that in California, but the talent is here. People want to be
Yeah,
here, so that's always going to be a draw. Um,
100%. 24
yeah,
million residents. That's not changing, despite it seems like our state policy is driving people out by the day, but the 24 million residents are still here. The labor's here. Advanced manufacturing is the real deal, and it's supported by. You think back, we were always a defense, aerospace
hmm
based industrial market,
yeah,
and it's wild. You look at these buildings, the amount of capital that these occupiers are putting into the buildings. Like advanced manufacturing isn't cheap.
yeah,
Like the build out in these buildings is insane. Um, I just heard a story of a group buying a building, not in SoCal. They bought a building for 100 million and then proceeded to put 200 million into the building.
wow,
I mean, it's the capital. It's capital intensive. Yeah, I think advanced manufacturing is the real deal, and it's not just Anduril, it's the whole ecosystem that supports them. So as Anduril keeps ramping up, I mean, we're negotiating right now on a good chunk of space representing a tenant, and they're one of these suppliers to one of these big names,
hmm
and they're on that same growth trajectory. So I think we've just started seeing that. Anduril will go first, and then the horde of suppliers comes after it.
Yeah, you can sign up for the defense contractor contract announcements to see who's winning certain projects, and the amount of capital coming through that you would think is all associated with this is not one after the
Mm.
other, but once you start paying attention to it, it's pretty robust. And I have to imagine a lot of it is of this style.
yeah.
Yeah,
Then
you
Sean,
think
you
of
mentioned.
the.
Oh,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead,
Sorry.
Jay.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, you mentioned earlier, just like these groups, they're seemingly coming out of nowhere. They're in like 5,000 square feet, and then all of a sudden they need, 500,000 square feet. So you can imagine from a landlord's perspective, like, what does that credit look like? And how, so a lot of it is also selling the story and getting the landlord comfortable um, with, with the future. Cause you can't look at necessarily what they have now, but it's like, oh, we have these government contracts in place, these government contracts coming. And so we need the space, and this is how much we need. We need to hire this many people. And oftentimes it's, the rent part of the equation is almost, you know, way down the list, secondary,
For sure.
tertiary, and you got to get control of the building so you can have a business and secure all these contracts. Because if you can't have a building, then you're not going to be able to fulfill the contracts, and you're going to be in much more trouble.
A
So
building, and you have to have access to the power, right?
yeah,
It's kind of not good enough to say, we could expand the power. It's like, well, what does that mean? Are you sure you can?
hmm
I mean, Jay, you're
You
sitting,
could do
I
it?
think,
All right. Yeah.
yeah, Jay, you're sitting in a nice spot with the Garden Grove project because you're sitting on what, 8,000 amps, 10,000. I mean,
yeah,
an
we get
insane
up to
amount of power.
10,000. So
It's crazy.
yeah, and
And
it's
Garden Grove has a ton of people in that industry. There's
right.
people making submarines, they're making missiles, they're making chips. There's all sorts of stuff over there.
Yeah, so that goes back to the location thing, because you have to be in the right location, and a lot of those groups want to be around groups like them. So that's a big part of it.
Agreed.
Yeah, I have had a landlord want to look at the contract that the defense contractor has and then see how the funding works and find out that some of the funding like can come and go. It's not necessarily for as long as you're signing up for with your lease. And
Mm.
then administrations can make for different changes in your funding that was promised, but whether it actually was allocated and funded. And then the person that I worked with in the company that was in a decent sized building has been doing this since he's in his 80s. And he just said, like, it's a cost plus model where the rent is baked into the contract, but knowing that the contract can like be pulled out from under you or that it can like there can be moments of uncertainty is something that like sure seems difficult to deal with. And then he had a calm head where he's like, I've seen this 100 times, so I'm not worried, but like I still have to prepare for it, and I still have to like do what is necessary to make sure that like it's all going to work out in the event that the funding goes away. So that's yeah, that just goes to underwriting those types of groups.
I think landlords are open to taking calculated risks with tenants and their credit today.
Yeah.
I think you have to be. I think you're staring many months, if not, I hate even to say it, but years of vacancy in the face with some of these projects, brand new buildings.
Mhm.
Um, that's not too appealing. Um, so figuring out how to solve the credit risk, I think landlords are open.
That's a great point. The more you know and the bigger you see and the more time that goes by, the more risk you see of like people having to
No,
get comfortable with it and then recognizing like what is the balance or the trade-off that you're taking.
yeah, 100%. We did a deal with a startup EV company, and they didn't have great financials, and they leased 120,000 square feet in a building that we represented the landlord on, and ultimately we're able to get out of them a year of prepaid rent on a 5-year deal. And again, it was the calculus was okay. We don't love the financials, but what they're doing inside of the building doesn't seem to be, terribly disruptive to the overall structure of the building, mostly just warehousing. And we get a year of prepaid rent. So we feel good, fast forward. I think the company made it 18 months, maybe 20 months on a 5-year
Okay.
term. Landlord gets the building back. But again, uh, there's a good belief that, hey, if we didn't do that deal, we may have just sat that entire time until now vacant, because there's certainly other buildings on the market that did that.
Yeah,
And the
and that
time
rent,
value of money.
yeah, that
Yeah,
rent that you got back then was also higher than what you would,
strong.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you take that into account, and then yeah, you just take your take the risk there on that one.
Yeah.
What do you guys see capital markets wise in terms of institutional capital and confidence in the marketplace? I got to imagine bottom of the cycle, we had don't catch a falling knife. And then we have the moment where you're like, are we bottoming still? And then like, what's it take for capital to want to be in the game again and underwrite exit caps or lease rates or a lot of the things that they have to be certain of. So I imagine you both see that and talk with people about that pretty frequently.
Yeah, I think there's like for the LP capital, they're still very cautious. They're not all in yet on development deals. There's a few here and there that are looking to lean in, but I think for the most part, they're um, a lot of LP capital. I think they're in so many different product types. They're spread out across the country. They're relying on Sean and myself and groups like us, to help educate them on where the market's headed. So I think they're a little bit slower to just react. Whereas like Sean could be beating the drum like, hey, now's the time to do stuff, and and it takes a while to kind of get to that level where the
Don't be late
capital's
to the
come through.
party.
Yeah, so it's always a challenge, and and I think it's kind of natural too to kind of look around, see what everyone else is doing, and making sure you're not the only one out there just kind of doing your own thing and going against the grain. So it takes a while before that to kind of really pick up some momentum and people start to feel comfortable again. But I think also by the time you get comfortable, it's already a little bit too late, because the market's already humming
Hmm.
at that point. So, that's why I'm like, I feel like at least in Orange County, LA, we bottomed out at some level. Like we feel pretty good about where lease rates are today. So that helps with our underwriting. We don't generally feel that they're just going to fall off a cliff again. So that helps with our underwriting and projections moving forward because, how you value a building is really you got to get a good credit tenant in there and what are they going to be paying in rent over the next 5, 10, 15 years, and then making, a return based on that. So, the stronger the tenant activity is and stronger rents start to become, then then you'll see more of the capital come back. But for the time being, I think people are just picking their spots on the site has to have a story. Like, is there advanced manufacturing story there, and can you defend it? And can you back it up with lease rates and this that sort of thing to be able to justify paying what you're going to pay. Some people are able to justify that right now because that's why you're seeing very competitive, uh, openly marketed deals right now throughout LA, Orange County, and even into San Diego. Um, and so that's been, I think, an interesting development. But it's going to be a little bit before, capital comes back like it was, in the last, 4 years or so when it was almost a commodity, like, but now it's really difficult to get.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, Justin, everybody's looking at folks like you and not and me. It's like it all starts with leasing, It's
Yeah.
like what is happening?
Yeah.
Um we've all been fooled, I think, over the last 4 years, thinking like, all right, the market's doing great. Liberation Day hit. What was that, last year? I mean,
Hmm.
it liberated all the deals I was working on. I could tell you that. Like they just went away, right? Like that. Uh, Without getting into politics and love him or hate him, we've got a president who is, I don't know, a little chaotic, unpredictable.
Yeah.
But I think the market overall, we can talk about like the Wall Street, the market, and the real estate markets, the companies that occupy and produce things and make things in our economy, seem to be getting used to the ride, this really wild ride we're on, and maybe just kind of pushing through it. I mean, we started a freaking war in the Middle East 6 weeks ago, and you wouldn't know by looking at the stock market. You wouldn't know by looking at the deals that are getting inked right now in the real estate market. So it is kind of
Yeah.
interesting. I wonder if people have just become acclimated to the craziness, and it's part that, and it's part, again, we're right at the 4-year anniversary of when people hit pause. You know, companies go out of business if they don't grow. How long do you pause? You just
Right.
can't.
Yeah.
You can't pause forever. So I think it starts with us. I think it starts with and not us, but we're closest to the tenants. It's all about the tenants at the end of the day. We're
Yeah.
closest to the tenants and their decision making, their thinking. It feels like tenants are okay with moving forward, but it is really scattered. It's like the real high end of the market, your Fortune 100, and then I wouldn't say low end of the market, but just the unknowns, so like the all private equity backed, lots of investment capital backed, but not brand names that anybody's ever heard of. But
Hmm.
those are all the technology related companies. So everybody else in the middle, I think, is still waiting to see.
And you can only wait so long. You got to get on with things and make decisions and move on.
Yeah, indeed. Those groups in the middle, I think it's a mixed bag. I think we're seeing tenants, like doing a deal right now where a tenant's going to lease 85,000 square feet, which is great. Building that's been sitting on the market, but they're coming out of a 200,000 square foot building, which hit the
Yeah.
market, right? We represented a landlord on leasing 230,000 feet up in Fullerton a month or two ago, which is great. But that tenant was moving out of a 400,000 square foot building, right? So that's why we're seeing our net absorption numbers are still negative. I mean, close to on par, but still negative. Like the activity is great, but the net effect on the market for everybody in the middle, it's still up in the air.
Got to keep grinding through. Yeah.
And then I think
Yeah.
just the disparity in rents, like for the different types of tenants. If you're an advanced manufacturer, you're paying, north of $2 a foot. And then if you're a run of the mill, 3PL, it's a different number. What is that? In some class A buildings that have been sitting there, that could be, $1.30, $1.40, $1.50, depending on what market you're in. So that's, I think, just been really interesting that, these groups are paying whatever it takes to lease the building. And then, while there's so many other options, but I guess that just goes to show, going back to the location part of it, and then the power part of it, and, the labor situation, the people, if they have those, then it's a different equation for them. Whereas, just a regular, warehouse distribution tenant like we're used to in our market, they're paying kind of more of the market rate.
So
Which is hard to
pricing,
define.
Yeah.
That market rate.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
so pricing power, like getting good at knowing what's it worth when you're
Yeah.
building it, or like how do you put that into your pricing schedule, assuming someone needs it or when they do. There'll be some more nuance there and some more judgment.
Yeah, because there's plenty of buildings where landlords feel it's, because they have certain things, that it should be a higher rate, but the market maybe not there yet, or does not see it the same way, and so you see some of those buildings sitting as well.
The whole issue of power, I think that's going to evolve too over the next handful of years. There's, Prologis, I think, is looking at a program right now where they're doing on-site power generation. I don't even know how, but that Velar Atomics group that just leased 500,000 feet. I mean, these are like small modular nuclear reactor power generation things. Again, I am way out of my depth to even talk about it, but there are, solving for, hey, we got to get power and we're just waiting on Edison to deliver it, and they don't know if they have enough on their grid. I mean, there's workarounds for that happening now, it becomes very interesting. I think you boil it all down to the thing that isn't going to change very easily is the proximity to the labor, like the buildings in close proximity to where the people are. I think that's a tough one to solve for. So I'm still betting heavily on the infill markets for that reason.
Right.
I love it. And the market will have to get pretty tight to have power be something where people will have to go above and beyond for generating their own, or that becomes something we will need to know more intimately in order to help clients with and to understand what that trade-off is.
No doubt. Yeah. Guys, we're all just guessing until the robots take over and do everything for us, and warehouses are out in the desert with autonomous trucks, and yeah. Until then, we keep going.
Yeah. I used to think Terminator 2 Judgment Day was impossible. What is the, great movie, but just thought it was never in the likelihood of possibility. But,
so
you kind of look at it. I mean, if AI gets, we're just scratching the surface here. I mean, it could get to that point, right? If we don't figure out a way to harness it and control it, so
Go back and watch The Matrix. We just had my wife and I had our 15-year-old. We watched it with them.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing was about like, that's when AI took over, everything went crazy.
Right.
And it was all about power and
Yeah.
power generation, AI. It's funny.
You're like, so did that happen, or it's happening,
Yeah.
or it's about to happen?
Right. Might have happened. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Well, if we end this show, if you guys are okay with it, a hot take would be, when are we going to see one of these robots in the warehouse? And then we can place our bets. And on our next show, hopefully will be before that happens, depending on what your bet is. So have you seen one in there? Humanoid, 2 legs, 2 arms, a head, moving boxes? And if you haven't, when do you think we'll see that? Like with your own eyes?
I think it's going to be sooner than we think. So I'm going to say 2027. It's probably a bit aggressive, but I just think it's going to be sooner than we think. Sean's talking about the labor story, but obviously, there's a way to solve that problem is with more automation and then more robots, and I've seen companies that are doing that sort of stuff with human type robots. So I think that's going to happen. The driverless taxis are happening, but I've also been talking to companies that are actually doing flying taxis. So, and they have momentum on kind of their business, and it's just hard for me to imagine that happening soon, but it's going to happen. I just, it's hard to say, how quickly, but I'll go out on a limb and say 2027 for your robots.
I mean, there's robots all over industrial buildings in our market. I just saw a photo of one of Rivian's manufacturing facilities. I mean, the insane amount of robotic manufacturing that's happening in there. The humanoid just walking around lifting up boxes. I don't know. My mindset would be 18 months, but notice how none of us are even contemplating that won't happen. I mean, Elon is talking about that there'll be more robots than humans, eventually. So that it seems something that is inevitable. And, I'm very much, I try to be optimistic with the technology and AI and robots and all that. I'm very much trying to adopt it and get on board. I think there's people who are like, AI is not going to be that big a deal. I just think, a lot changed for me 6 months ago when I bought a Tesla, and now I never drive again. My Tesla drives me everywhere. You start to believe in technological advances, very quickly when something like driving isn't something, I just don't do it anymore. Extrapolate that out across every area of what we do. And the way we live, it's going to be wild. I'm really excited. I'm happy. I was born in 1980, right? So this is before all technology. I still remember my home phone number, growing up. When I first started in the business, I was rubbing little dots on maps for tour books. Like we grew up like in prehistoric times, and now we're seeing cars that drive us and AI. I mean, it's a wild time to be alive.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap it up. I appreciate you guys spending the time. It was great, Jay, to help get us all together. And then it was fun to explore and just let the conversation go where it goes. And I always appreciate your opinions. I value them. I value you guys as colleagues, and excited to keep learning and growing together.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it, Justin.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been
Thank
great.
you guys.
We'll see you guys later.
All right.
Yep. Bye-bye.